Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And in studios, I have somebody that's deep into the world of something that I'm passionate about. I'm talking about technology. The brother already before interview was speaking a little bit about things that we hear about, but definitely, I know I haven't touched base with that, but others have definitely been there. So I'm glad he can shed some light on some things in reference to technology and people doing that type of work in technology, connecting through a couple of people we know. But now we're here to get his story. Bryan Campbell, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing excellent.
Okay, I like that. Excellent is an adjective as far as when it comes to the day. You don't hear that often. So I really like the sauce and the space that you put in there.
Well, Resurrection Sunday was yesterday, so
Okay.
it's a restart for everything.
Okay. Starting off fresh,
Yeah,
definitely. He has risen.
exactly.
All right. So in this space, in this scope, Detroit stories, that's where Detroit is different starts.
Okay.
And I can imagine that a lot of your story, we're going to talk computers, we're going to talk coding, we're going to talk AI. Before that all goes down,
Yeah.
Detroit itself. You and your family, how deep in the roots and the connections is your family to Detroit?
Oh, we go really, really deep, actually. It's about 200 of us here. Right.
Whoa, whoa. Okay,
Yeah.
that's really deep. Okay, y'all can do a family reunion of Detroit itself,
Yeah, we do actually.
like in multiple iterations too, with 200 people.
We got a family council with senior members and junior members
Mm,
meet monthly. We have a family reunion. We have a sing along. Actually, a sing along was at my house last year,
okay,
and we got all types of activities. Growing up, my family actually owned two computer companies.
okay, all right. So
My
so
godmother actually taught me how to program when I was 7.
all right, we definitely want to go there, but let's start with the roots. Who was the first family member to make their way to Detroit?
Ooh, that's a hard question. Um, I have a grandfather that was stolen as a child,
Mm,
so I'm not sure where he's actually from. But my family, we call ourselves the Emma Beards. She's like the oldest.
hmm
Yeah, she's a matriarch. She's my great grandmother, and so mostly everything's sponsored for that. She had 10 kids, and then my grandmother also had 10 kids. Gladys Stallings. I got a picture of Gladys with Martin Luther King. She used to work with him. She She got this letter when she was like 70 years old from the FBI saying, "We're no longer looking at you,
mm,
no longer watching you."
mm.
And so my family, they've been in Detroit for a while. They own Sync Technologies and Beard Associates are the two companies that I grew up.
Okay, so
Also, my uncle, he invented academic games for Detroit.
okay, all right. You giving a lot of the stories that I really want to get, and you going there. But
Yeah,
first, we got to go neighborhood. So,
neighborhood. Okay, all right.
Emma Beard, what neighborhood do you remember coming up was connected to that family upon touching base in Detroit?
I believe she lived on the west side. I mean, it was such a long time ago. I don't really remember. Like she died when I was like maybe 10.
Mm,
So I don't really remember. But I grew up on the east side. I grew up on Teppert.
hmm
7 Mile and Tuppert.
Okay.
I went to, some immersion school where I didn't even speak English for a while. The whole thing was taught in Spanish. I had math in Spanish.
hmm
I had history in Spanish. I had nothing but Spanish classes. Everything was in Spanish to 4th grade.
Did you go to Flicks?
Then I went to Bates. Uh,
Okay. Because that foreign language emerging
yeah,
community school, which was first a project connected to a school, because just from all these Detroiters different interviews, I've gathered that, but I
yeah.
knew a little bit about Flicks. So
It might be Flex.
o-
So I have a really terrible memory when it comes to like that early stage stuff, like the
okay,
names of things.
because yeah, Flicks was very immersed in Spanish,
Hmm.
Japanese, and French, where, yeah, you're right. Like the whole lesson would be immersed in whatever was going on with that language. Also, Mandarin too, I believe.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I ended up having like 9 years of Spanish growing up because of it. That
Okay.
was the first four.
You still speak it?
See ya.
Okay.
Claro.
There you go. So it works. You were immersed and it connected.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also
So
lived in Panama for a couple of years too.
okay, Panama is definitely one of those places that the US dollar is the currency there. So that
Mhm.
connection with the canal and a lot of interesting things happening
Yeah.
with government wise right now. So from from flicks to Bates, you mentioned that,
That's
but
where I met Jonathan.
even before, yes, Jonathan Barlow, that connection. So even before that, I would say your family. You mentioned the technology. Your parents, what are they doing? Mom, dad, what did they connect with? Did they connect with that family business and technology? What were they doing as you were coming up?
So my family, it was all family, like, it was all brothers, and my mother was a shareholder, but she wasn't a part of it.
Hmm.
And my father, because he wasn't really a part of that family, he wasn't a part, so my family was, like, a little bit on the outside,
Mm,
while everyone else was still working that family business.
hmm.
My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and then my dad, he was an engineer. He actually worked at Cast Tech, so I remember him taking me and my brothers to Cast after hours. We'd be in the swimming pool,
Mm,
but we kinda stood outside the family, and I was, like, looking in, like, "I can't wait to work for you guys."
hmm.
And so, I actually went to school for engineering, and I really tried to beef up my engineering career because I wanted to work for my family company.
Hmm. Okay. So it was always this idea. So as a child, just knowing something about technology and computers, what was it that connected you? Was it just the family business, or did you just have an interest in computers as a kid, period?
So I kinda grew up with computers, at a really interesting age. I can't remember what they call them, like I have a different, like, it's called Xenos or something, where you have an analog childhood and you have a digital adulthood,
Mhm,
right? And so I started programming at a really early age, like Microsoft DOS, and I remember I had my first class in 4th grade, but I really enjoyed creating things, the creativity of it,
mhm.
like creating a game, creating, things on the screen. It was almost, it gave me, like, this creative freedom just to build, whatever my mind thought of at the time, and, no one else was doing that, and so whenever I did it, people were shocked, like, "What, you're doing this?" I remember one time I went to, Kinko's, which doesn't exist anymore, and, I was, like, 11 years old, and all their computers were broken. I went in and I hacked all their computers. I fixed all their computers.
Mm,
And then the manager came in and was like, "Hey, who fixed the computers?" And I raised my hand. He's like, "Can I hire you?" My grandma was like, "No, he's only 11."
mm,
He's like, "When he turns 13 or 14 or something, like, bring him back here."
mm.
So that ended up being, like, one of my first jobs, but, I've always been interested in doing something in creativity, but then it kinda latched on to other people where they needed it.
So even those programming language at that time and going in and working from DOS and on, how were you learning this just so that people kind of get a concept? This is no Chat GPT, it's no Google, it's
Right.
no YouTube University. Where are you getting the information to apply and try these things out through technology?
It's a good question. My aunt, my godmother, her name is Donna Stalling. She's actually a city council for Lake the Village.
Hmm.
She gave me this MS-DOS book.
Hmm.
I just be sitting there looking in the book. I try a couple things out, look in the book, trying a couple things out. So it's all manuals. I remember having, like, just stacks and stacks of manuals that you had to just go through.
So, also similar to what you're speaking about is something that people would know through AI right now. So, through MS DOS, you would prompt different commands, and those commands would have different ways in changing colors and what would happen on the screen. Or you could have a lot of like early computer programs were really so much based in a lot of what would happen with mathematics or taking in a lot of data and data entry points and going through and shifting different things in data. So learning those prompts early on, and you're just a kid going through these prompts, just being fascinated at it.
Yeah, pretty much. Each time I learned a new command, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty awesome." It gave me more ability to do something.
Mm,
It was like almost adding another appendage to my body. Like, I can do this now. I can do that now.
mm.
And some of these things interact with one another. It was really fascinating to me, and then, like I said, you get that kinda affirmation because 'cause you'll show someone, and they'd be astounded, and not only are they astounded by what you did, they'll have an actual application, like, "Bryan, can you come over and do this for me or do that for me?"
Hmm.
They actually pay me money as a kid.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about some of those like early commands and things that you're working on in computers. And
Yeah.
this is still separate than the family business because it sounds as if just at that time your family's more so like, let's get the shares, but let's not necessarily work within the business.
Mhm.
This is just running concurrent on your own.
Yeah. Yep, so I did a lot of things concurrent on my own. I worked for my church. Also, my school, I actually hacked my school and changed everyone's grades.
Mm.
So they hired me as well. I actually was a student teacher. I'm not sure if many people have seen that, but in 12th grade, they had me actually teach a class, a programming class to other students. I was a student. I had a teacher there monitoring me. I was giving out homework. And then it's very similar. It's because I was doing that. I was also in this Calc 2 class, and our Calc 2 teacher left. And it'd be me and 3 other people. We had to teach Calc 2 as well.
So you're like Doogie Howser, which is this show back in the day where it was a child prodigy that happened to be a medical doctor. And that was Doogie Howser. And every night we remember I'm older. So like Doogie Howser will write into his computer what he would work on and what he would do.
Right.
So, and we didn't even like, I guess, get through some of your base journey on up to high school itself.
Yeah. So at 13, my uncle hired me to work at Wayne State University.
Okay, wait, before we even get there,
Okay.
Bates,
Okay. Let's
'cause
go with
man,
Bates.
it's a lot of stuff
It's a lot of stuff.
that stands out. Like I say, you've accomplished a lot,
A
but
lot.
Bates, what do you remember about Bates, and what was that experience like? And you definitely met Jonathan Barlow there, but
Right.
what else about Bates?
So I remember some crazy things happening at Bates. I just remember it's like the only place where you actually had to fight.
Mm,
I remember getting in lots of fights. I remember seeing just a lot of people, a lot of kids who wanted to be better, and also they had their own struggles.
mm,
I really didn't see that much, except for that time because I ended up going to like Lathrop afterwards,
okay.
Bernie. But I was terrible at math, believe it or not,
Mm,
and I was trying to get into academic games. And my mom was like, he has to get into academic games, and I didn't know why it was important. You know, why my mother wanted to be inside of it. But she ended up calling my cousin. His name is Philip Hall. He's actually Lehman Allen's son, who actually invented academic games.
mm,
So he came to my house and he taught me math for like 3 weekends.
mm,
And after he taught it to me, like no one actually just sat me down and explained it to me so I could understand it at a one-on-one level. And that really made me realize like how if you spend time with a kid, just time with someone, there's because I struggled for a long time. It really makes that much of a difference because he did that. He showed up like every weekend until I got it. And then I went to go to academic games and I killed it. Actually, I won nationals like 3 years in a row.
mm.
Still got all the trophies at home. I got so good at it that I mean, not to brag too much, but I got bored where I was actually telling other people secrets so they can go to nationals. Like, hey, you do this, you go to, and it was I felt pride to bring as many people to nationals as I could.
Mm.
And not just for my team, I'll actually help other teams as well.
Okay. All right. So, what was it as you talked about a couple of times, like hacking into things, hacking
Yeah.
out of stuff? Explain to me when you say hacking, especially from that age, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Just break it down.
So back in the day, I think they still have this book. It's like this little hacker book. I can't remember the name of it. It has like numbers or something. I think it still exists. But you buy it, it tells you how to hack.
Hmm.
It'll tell you like how to like do things with certain sockets, or like if you have a telephone, how to hook up a telephone to a lamp, and you can like do a couple of switches, and all of a sudden you got free. Because back then, phone calls cost money. Like every single time you make a phone call, it costs money. Make a long distance call, it costs money. So a way to hack it so it doesn't cost any money. And so I start off with that, and it was a way for me to actually call my public library first, hack the public library, and then make an outgoing phone call from the public library. So now the public library is paying for it. I'm not paying for
Hmm. So, in this is just your interest was like if you could pull it off
it.
and
Yeah.
execute and do it. And when you explain hacking, because it's uplifted, but give me your definition for hacking so people can kind of follow
Right.
what that is.
So hacking to me is usually like everyone has a certain standards of things that they want you to follow. They have policies, they have processes. And sometimes if you go outside of those standards, you can actually do something that wasn't intended to do.
Hmm.
Right. And so or I mean that's one thing. Another one is there's some type of security there, and you bypass that security, you break into it, and you expose it a little bit. So when I was at Lathrop, um, the teacher, I had a Spanish teacher. He ended up leaving. I remember his name was like Mr. Ricardo. He ended up leaving, and we had a substitute teacher.
Hmm.
So substitute teacher's there, and I'm sitting there thinking like, I wonder what kind of grades I have. So I asked the teacher, like, "Hey, can I go look at my grades?" She said, "Yeah." So I went to the computer. I saw his password. I hacked into it, figured out what his password was. Look at my grade. I was like, "Okay, I got a B. No big deal." I'm about to get up and go sit down. I look behind me, and there's a ton of I have a line of people like, "What's Brian? What my grade is? What's my grade?" And as people are seeing their grades, they're seeing like D's and C's, and they're like, "Can you change it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can change it if you want me to." So I'm changing grades, and then I mean, it's a big line. The substitute teacher don't know what to do. She thinks this is normal, and so the next day, teacher comes in and he sits on top of his desk. He puts both legs up. He does like something like this. And I remember he had this courage in his head. He didn't know what to say. He was like, "Who in the hell
Mm.
had the audacity to go on my computer?"
Yeah.
Then I raised my hand.
Yeah.
I was like, "I did it." And he's like, "See me at the class." And so at the class, uh, he saw that I didn't change my grade, but I had to remember what everyone else had. Like whatever I remembered they had is what they got, and he lowered my grade.
Mm.
Then he had me doing like teacher aid stuff afterwards just to make up for it. Like, "Hey, Brian, you see me yesterday class, grade these papers, whatever, just to make up for it." But then later on, the next year, my school actually did get hacked again. This time it wasn't my fault, but police showed up at my house, and the school
Wow.
asked me if I did it,
Wow.
and I didn't. But they asked me to beef up the security, so then I had to and that's when I started working for the school.
Okay.
They gave me a permit and everything. I could walk around the halls, like, my high school experience and also my college experience is very different for
For the average student.
yeah,
And what high school did you go to?
South Lathrop,
Okay,
which also
Southfield
doesn't exist
Lathrop.
anymore.
Yeah, Southfield Lathrop. Southfield has one school, as we know.
Yeah,
Before in many moons ago, people know Lathrop Village, as you already uplifted, a cousin that sits in the council there,
yep.
and then Miss I'm tripping, Miss Garrett. Shout out to Miss Garrett over there in Lathrop Village. So that what do you remember about that community coming up as a kid?
Lathrop Village is interesting. It was created by a lady named Lathrop. I'm not sure if you know the story, but she owned all the land,
Hmm.
and she had some kids, and eventually she started getting rid of the land, started selling it to the city. She had certain rules set up, but her house was still there when I was growing up. She still lived in her house, and she had children. I heard that she went kind of crazy or something. I can't remember exactly what happened to her. I hear her children like ruin her fortune,
Mm,
but my so wherever she lives, it's like Morningside Plaza, it's like a circle, and her house is in the middle. They
mm,
built other houses around it, and my uncle built a house there, and that was my first time seeing someone build a house from scratch.
mhm,
But, I told you I have a really big family, right? So my grandmother lived down the street, my auntie lived behind me, my uncle lived behind me, I had another uncle, so I had so much family. When I went to Lathrop, I had, like, 8 cousins
hmm.
in Lathrop.
Okay. So approaching that, just being in that large family,
Mhm.
still connecting.
Right.
And is everybody Beard? I'm guessing, or would you know most of the people through the Beard last name?
So, if you look at the Beard family, my grandma Gladys Stallings is one of the biggest of the Beards. She has 10 kids, so they're all Stallings at this.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So Stallings and Beards,
yeah,
you kind of just know that that's fam.
right.
All right. So after high school, where do you go for college?
I went to Michigan State.
Why did you choose state?
To be honest, I didn't want to go to school
Hmm.
because I was already making almost 6 figures as a high school student.
Hmm.
I bought myself. My family was they were like, "Brian, you're good. You pay all your own bills." So I had to get my own phone. I had a Camaro Z28.
Wow.
And I'm like, why do I need to go to school to learn something I already know? I already know how to program. I can build a business right now. And actually, I just wanted to work for my family company, to be honest.
Mm,
They say you can't work here unless you have a degree.
wow.
I was like, no one else has a degree. Everyone else is working there. They're like, yeah, but you need you to have a degree.
Hmm.
And so I really didn't want to go. But my mother, she applied me to Michigan State.
Hmm.
And so I didn't apply myself. And when I went there, once again, my whole family was there. I had tons of cousins. We all went to state. And I remember walking around with my resume trying to get a job, and they said, "Oh, you're too
You're too
overqualified."
overqualified.
Yeah, because my resume, I had like 4 or 5 different things on there, and so what ended up happening was, going to It's called Department of Residence Life.
Hmm.
It's like if you don't have RAs and stuff like that, or
Yeah.
like a mentor program. But back then, everything was pen and paper. So remember me growing up, everything's analog. I remember I was working at Wayne State University. I was like, "Oh, this is a new thing called email." I'm like, "Well, I've been doing email for a while now, and it was just in the news." So when I went to Michigan State, it was the same thing. They didn't even have a website.
Hmm.
I built some of their first websites. I
Wow.
built some of their first databases.
Hmm.
It got to the point though where, um, because I'm building all these things, no one knows how to use it. So now in the summertime, I have a class. I have like my own class. I'm teaching staff how to use my software that I built for them.
All right. Now, with that,
Yeah.
that just naturally leads just my history in music and other forms of media. When you develop those websites and the
Mhm.
design and the feel of that, the ownership and the licensing of it, because it's like you have it in the licensing, so people get a concept of it. Is like the usage and over time and how a person will update it. Are you just like kind of building for a flat fee and kind of keeping it moving? Are you thinking about licensing? How did that work?
No, I'm like a person straight out of high school. I'm not thinking about any of that.
Hmm.
It's a 40-hour week,
Mm,
just job.
s-
They're paying me, I think, $25 an hour, but they had to change the bylaws for me. They actually changed some of the bylaws because what they were doing was illegal at the time,
hmm,
because I was working so much. As an undergrad, you're not supposed to work 40 hours.
yeah.
They also gave me a graduate apartment.
Wow.
And so I'm the only undergrad living in a graduate apartment. People thought I graduated. I wasn't. They also gave me a parking spot.
Hmm,
Michigan State, you can't drive around. I could drive around.
hmm.
And they gave me, room and board, and they also gave me a salary
Okay.
on top of it.
How did
I thought that
you?
was great as a
Yeah,
student.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a different student experience,
Yeah,
especially from someone that really wasn't thinking about school in the first place.
right.
What era of Michigan State are we talking?
This is 2000.
Okay, so you're there when they win the championship then.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I remember even seeing Magic Johnson when I first arrived, day one, like the first football game.
Mm,
It was a cool experience, and actually my family were there, right? So, my cousin was the first drum major. I
mm,
think he's the first African American drum major. I remember, like, going around campus and seeing his pictures in some of the books.
mhm,
And then my other cousin also, he went on to play for the Pistons, and he was like, so I have a lot of family doing good things, and they're still doing big things,
mhm.
but it wasn't just me. And so we were just, I would say we were running the school, but we're doing pretty well in that school.
Okay. All right, so
And it's
those.
mostly Caucasian there, it's mostly white there, right?
Yeah, very much so. Michigan State, like a lot of it's predominantly white
Yep,
institution. With that, I do think that the Black alumni of Michigan State have a very strong legacy and cultural connection for sure to the city of Detroit. A lot of what they do with, Black Homecoming Week up there is definitely something that people that go to state really connect with that culture at state too.
yeah.
Keeping it real, faking the funk, all of the cultural Michigan State stuff that people definitely know about.
I remember, I had a lot of crazy experiences there, like, actually, that's the first time I really experienced racism too.
Hmm,
Um, I was the only black kid on the top of Hubbard, like, they call it the Penthouse 4, and they talked bad about me no matter what. And I would come home every day, talk to my mom, not every day, but every weekend, talk to my mom about it. One time, she just disappeared.
hmm,
I know where she was like, "Where mom at?" My dad was like, "I don't know." She was gone all weekend. She went to Michigan State, and she bullied those kids. She said she got them all in a room. She said, "Don't you dare talk about my son. Don't you dare put your hands on my son." And then I went to school, and everything changed, and no one told me why. She said she swore 'em all to secrecy to say that, "Hey, don't tell my son I was here."
hmm,
They told me like 5 months later.
hmm,
But, it was really stressful, at least in the beginning, just getting my footing. But then after everything started to be successful for me, like, work-wise, things were cool. It was just a very, very different experience, Michigan State.
hmm. So also just I can think of you're not walking the path of what we would see the average freshman walk as well.
No, not at all. Actually, I went there for computer science, and they moved me into this dorm with the other people with computer science, right? Seniors and stuff. And I ended up helping them with their homework, you
Mm,
know? I'm a freshman helping the seniors with their homework, so I was like, "This is like a waste of my time, wasting my money," so I ended up switching to computer engineering.
mhm,
I didn't know nothing about hardware. I was like, "Let me just learn something here." I knew I wasn't gonna use computer engineering growing up. I knew it was something I didn't wanna do, but I need to get some kinda education where I actually will learn something.
Okay. All right. So after state, now we're looking at you graduate. What year do you graduate?
I partied a lot of state. So, I ended up getting married to the woman I dated at the time, and she had her bachelor's in 3 years and her master's in 2.
Mm,
So she's like, "Brian, you gotta get out of here," because I was just working. That
yeah.
was a job for me. I wasn't actually going to
Mhm.
school. She actually started going to my classes for me. She'd be sitting there taking notes.
Wow.
She's like, "We gotta get you out of here."
Mhm.
So I ended up graduating in 2005.
So 2005, and this is an era post.com boom. Where is your mindset at in reference to what's happening even with websites, technology, information
Yeah.
at the time? So if you all get the concept of this, the late 90s, during that time when you're really hustling in high school, learning a lot of this, it was a massive push. I would say, really, that last presidency of Bill Clinton, where a lot of attention's on websites. Everybody's like, can you do a website? Can you get a website?
Yep.
People, I know this sounds crazy for you all, but like if you could log online and buy, let me just throw this out here, Coca-Cola.com. You could have bought the domain name for Coca-Cola, held on to it, and then sold it to Coca-Cola for, I don't know, $100,000 or something. These
Yeah.
stories are just rampant at that time. Then NASDAQ, as a trading market, starts investing heavily into a lot of the website corporations or what could be done creatively with websites. That crash happens in an early 2000s era. During that time, you're already kinda in that space of technology.
And, Facebook at that time was being released.
Yes, that
And
well,
it was only
social
for
media
it was only
is
for college
for
students.
college students.
Yeah.
Social media is starting. Facebook is there. You have MySpace
MySpace as
that is
well.
very popular at the time,
Yep.
but where's your frame of reference to, like, how that crash happened and how you're looking to navigate in this technology space?
So I wasn't really trying to invent anything. You gotta keep in mind, I'm thinking I wanna work for my family.
Mm,
You know, I just love family. Like, we used to go on trips together. We used to do everything together, me and my family.
mhm.
And so I didn't care about making money. I didn't care about making cool websites or doing anything like that. I just really wanted to help my family out, spend time working with them. Because, I went to high school with them. I went to college with them. I just really enjoyed being around family. And so for me, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things I wanna build, but ultimately, I wanna build that for my family, right? So when I graduated, um, I went back to my family business to try to work for them, right?
Mhm.
They wouldn't hire me.
Wow. What do you think it was why they wouldn't hire you?
They would not hire me. They interviewed me and everything, and then they said, "Nope, you can't work here."
Why did they not wanna hire you?
To be honest, I still don't know to this day. It
Wow.
broke my heart because I had my
That
heart.
was the passion and the thought process of being here.
Yeah, yep. And so, this is what I think. My mom told me, "Brian, I own 1/8 of the company. When you start working there, you're gonna own 1/8 of the company." And I was a beast. So I think I came off like maybe intimidating for my uncles or something like that. I don't
Mhm,
know. But they interviewed me and they said they weren't gonna hire me. And I sat there, I waited for like 6 months,
mm,
like an opening, and I saw them hire everyone else.
wow.
And so it kind of destroyed me. So I ended up moving.
Mm,
First time out of Michigan. I ended up moving to Virginia.
okay, whereabouts?
I went to Virginia Beach first.
VA.
Yep.
Beach.
And then
Okay,
I lived in Norfolk for a minute.
okay.
Yep, and I was easily making 6 figures my first job. I actually built, autotrader.com.
Mm,
That's my first job, and then I built forrent.com.
okay. Alright, and you're that close to all this military stuff, I'm surprised you're not working on military contracts at that
E
time.
Everyone kept saying that, like, "Aren't you in military?" Because, I I didn't find a barber there at Virginia, so I would just shave my head just to quickly go to
Mm.
work, and so I had, like, a military look.
Well, in Norfolk, but I was gonna say in VA Beach, I'm sure that Hampton, it's all types of
Yeah.
barbers in, VA Beach, you know?
So, yeah, in Norfolk, it wasn't, but,
Yeah, yeah,
I
definitely.
ended up getting a nice spot in Norfolk.
Mhm.
I think we were married at the time. Yeah, we were married at the time. But we were just looking for a place off the water,
Mhm.
and we both sat at the steps at one. We're like, "This is gonna be our new home." Ended up being our new home. We had a beach house. The backyard was all sand.
Hmm.
I used to see dolphins come to my house, like, at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Hmm.
and I'm right there at Chesapeake Bay. You'll see, like, aircraft or, what are those things called? The big ships, the air
Yeah, the naval carrier.
yeah,
Mhm.
and so these things are huge,
Very much so.
huge,
Very much so.
and I remember this one time, a sea turtle got chopped by a propeller, and you see this huge
Mm.
body just wash up on my beach.
Mm.
So I always call, like, animal control. It was a beautiful sight.
Okay.
I lived there for, like, 3 years, and then at that point, that's when my uncle was like, "Hey, we want you to work for us now."
Okay.
I'm like, "I'm already doing well down here. I'm living off the beach. Like, why would I go back to Michigan?" And so, I think this is when Bush was president. I was working for a company. So at first, I worked for a company that did Auto Trader and also did
You said for
Rent.com.
rent.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then I started working for a CSC, Computer Science Corporation. They deal with military contracts.
Okay, so now you transition over.
But I'm not working for the military. But yeah,
Working for a contractor that contracts with the military.
yeah. So I'm on
That's what
base
I
every
would
once in a
imagine.
while.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun actually going to base. But,
Mhm.
I built something called, it was like a training to be a convoy commander.
Mm.
Let's say everyone was going to Afghanistan at the time. So let's say you didn't have proper training,
Mhm.
go to Afghanistan, you would play my video game. It's a multiplayer video game and learn you how to be a convoy commander and see I think they call IEDs on the road or whatever,
Mhm.
different communication protocols. That was my first time actually experiencing building a video game. And I remember getting like a little coin from the army, from one of the battalions. I think it was like 72nd Battalion. They said if I ever run into someone else and I showed my coin, if they don't have the coin, they owe me a beer. So
Mhm.
it kind of felt like a part of the culture a little bit.
Okay.
But at that moment though, Bush got elected, 2008. Yeah, 2000. Not Bush, but Obama.
Mhm.
And as soon as that happened, all the military contracts dried up. I was told that Democrats don't really invest in the military. They closed my entire building down.
Wow.
A bunch of other buildings around me were closing.
Mhm.
I couldn't get a job anywhere.
Hmm.
So I ended up getting a offer in Washington D.C. and I got another offer in Vegas.
What do you choose?
I was looking at the housing market in Vegas because this is 2008,
Mhm.
right? The housing market is terrible.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to pick up, so I ended up getting like this house for like 200,000 on a in Rhodes Ranch, which is like a master plan community, and it has like golf courses and a bunch of other cool stuff.
Mhm.
They had like this lagoon in there. It's a huge lagoon. It's not a pool, it's a lagoon. They have like this, this pool thing where you can like a pool play thing where you can like go up and you have guns, you can like shoot little kids or they're walking around and
Mhm.
it's like not something you see like in a normal community.
Mm.
So that's where I ended up moving. That house ended up selling for like 450
Hmm.
a few years later. So it was a good
Okay.
investment.
All right. So you moved to Vegas. Where are
Yeah.
you working at in Vegas? And also the culture of Vegas is so different than many places on earth. As much as I say Detroit is different, I got a lot of homies out in Vegas too. Shout out to everybody, especially the Thomas family. Love them. Mayo, Joy, and a couple other cats out there in Vegas too. With that being said,
Yeah.
how did you adjust to the culture out there in Vegas and what are you working on?
So I never knew what payday loans were. And so my first job was at a company doing payday loans. But I saw how they were making some money.
Well, when you think about predatory lending, payday loans is the first thing that I think of. So if people don't know, it's like advanced cash. So a person usually targeting communities where scarcity and poverty are very abundant.
Right.
So very much communities like mine in Vegas, because of all the gambling hits, you have a lot of the pawn shops and a lot of things where people have money. So the thought process is I get paid $600 next week. You
Mhm.
see that this is what I work usually. I work this often. So I would like an advance on my money for that. So for this $600, just give me my $450. This also happens, I think, with people's tax refunds too. So
Right.
it's like, hey, I want my tax refund today, whatever tax preparing place. So it's like, okay, your full tax refund is worth $1,000. We'll give you $700 today because we don't mind waiting the 3 weeks for that $300.
Right. But it ends up being like a vicious cycle.
Very much so, as the person that is in such a desperate situation where you can't wait even if it's the 13 days or even 2 days for that money on your check, is probably not gonna be in a financially secure situation where they're not going to end up in that same cycle for
Right,
real. So I've uplifted things like this before that, in the world of expenses, you have fixed, not too economics here, but you got like fixed expenses, right? And then you have variable expenses. The fixed expense is like always what it is. And I had like a friend even that was asking me, like, hey, I need money for my rent. I was like, that's a fixed expense. If you borrow money from me for your rent, even though I know this month happens to have 5 weeks in it, 5 Fridays, you're still going to only have, like, 3 or 4 Fridays next month.
yep,
You're not gonna get ahead. It's sad because communities like mine are very much preyed upon by situations like that.
they are, and, I mean, it was interesting because they weren't the ones giving out the loans, they were the middleman, so if someone will apply, and they'll go and look at a bunch of different banks, and whatever bank, took it, they'll get, like, a finder's.
Mm,
And they applied that logic to a lot of the things. They did mortgages, they did, insurance,
mm,
and I just saw, like, hey, there's a business for being the middleman. You don't have
mhm,
to actually offer any of these things. You just get, like, a network of things, and so then I ended up creating my own, payday loan site on the
mm,
side. Like, "Hey, I can do this on the side."
mm,
And, this is one guy I met, he owns cashforgold.com, and he was, like, 17 years old, multimillionaire,
mhm,
and so I started doing that with him a little bit. But overall, I wanted to get out of this space because it seemed so predatory, and the more I stayed in it, the more I saw, like, how broken it was.
yeah,
But one of the things that I did, I made their most popular website. It's
mm,
called moneymutual.com. It didn't exist before I got there. It was
mm,
me and, David and Octavius, the 3 of us, and then we had Corey was our VP, but we ended up getting a celebrity. It was Montel Williams.
mm.
So someone knew about Montel Williams. They had some kinda contract with him. They made a contract with him. This is the very first time ever there's payday loan sites associated with a celebrity.
And very much so, we've seen things like this all the time and using the celebrity status to validate whatever that product may be. Spokespeople, spokespersons for financial products. And we've seen a lot of this, especially depending upon if you're watching daytime TV, a lot of financial products for seniors and elders, as so much has shifted from pensions to 401ks and what could be savings accounts for people looking at retirement. And yes, I would say it's very tough
Yeah,
because the who to trust and how to trust it, and what you will need are all big questions that, many people will need to answer.
yeah. And, when I first got there, this company, they own like 100 different payday loan sites,
Mm,
and they all act like different. They had different branding and everything. Because usually someone will apply to one, they'll get denied, then they'll go to another one, get
yeah.
denied. But they don't realize that the same company owns all of
Yes.
them, right? But once I created moneymutual.com, Montel Williams, they close all the other websites. They say, "Hey, we're just gonna focus on this one website."
Mhm.
This is my first time being a manager,
Mm.
and then all the spotlight was on me. And I remember one time my VP came in, he said, "Bryan, we just lost $1,000,000." He's like, "Why?" And I pointed to the QA. I was like, "Hey, QA is the one supposed to check the, things." He took me out for dinner the next day. He's like, "Bryan, you the manager. So if the problem, even though this QA did it, they work for you."
What's a QA?
Quality assurance engineers, they're the ones who test to see that things are actually working. So usually you have an engineer who builds something, then you have a QA to test it to see if what they built works the way it's supposed to
Mhm.
work. And so it wasn't working the way it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
QA told me it was supposed to work that way. But that was my first time realizing that as a manager, you gotta like protect your people that's over. So everything's pretty much your fault. And so at that point, that was my biggest like learning lesson at that moment as a manager. From then I ended up going to another company, it's called ECYs. And the CEO, his name is Jack. He's the best salesman I ever saw. He would go to like the MGM and just talk to them about an idea that he made up at the time. He'll walk out with a $10 million check.
Mm,
Like, "Brian got 10 million. We just had a deal with MGM. Just finished the conversation. I need to go build it."
mm,
And so that's when I first started. That was my first time working with people overseas. Jack had a company in Chengdu, China, and that company would go and get, like, college students,
mm,
and one of the universities there. And so I would build companies for him using, sources in Chengdu, China, and whatever wild idea, he would go and create some kind of wild idea, and I had to create a whole company with different resources and build it for him. And he just kept doing that over and over and over again. And after a while, that's what led to me working at Google.
mm. Okay. So still on the West Coast.
Still in, still in Las Vegas.
Mm,
Google said, "Hey, you gotta work here."
mm.
That's when I ended up moving to California.
Okay. Did you move to San Francisco?
I moved to South Bay. I moved to, Santa Clara.
Okay. All right. So right in the mix, even right there for real.
Yeah.
And when do you move there?
I moved there, let's see, 2015.
Okay. So this is Google's very much established at this point in 2015.
Man, that was the best place to work. It's like a Disney World there.
Okay. Explain what the culture was and what were you working on?
So, this is the first time I made $1 billion. Uh, I was working in ads. I was like, "I wanna work where all the money is being made."
Mm,
Google at the time, most of their money is still ads. I think it's still today, it's still mostly ads,
mm,
not cloud. And so, the culture there is different, like, it's I can't really even explain it. You just have to be honest, even when I was there, I couldn't explain it. I was like, "You just gotta come visit." I would do tours all the time, but when I first started working there's like 200 of us all hired at the same time, and then they had these cohorts where you actually you don't work in your facility right away. You have to onboard. You're working this cohort, and when you're in this cohort, you're meeting, like, amazing people from all over the United States, sometimes all over the world. Some people are CEOs, they quit their jobs or they got acquired by something,
mhm,
and so, some of the best people I ever met were right there. One of the guys actually invented TensorFlow,
mhm,
for machine learning and, I mean, the people there I met were incredible. But from there, it was, like, really just getting acclimated to the Google culture was very much like the movie. So I'll wake up,
When you say the movie, what movie?
what is that movie called? The Internship?
Oh, the movie with, Vince Vaughn
Yeah, yeah.
and, I'm about to call the guy Starsky, the guy that's in the Starsky and Hutch movie. What's his name? Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson, yeah, yeah.
Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn are in a movie, and it's about interns, like, different groups and different sets, and they're, like, kinda like the older guys that would intern with Google.
Yeah, but the culture there, if you wanna see Google culture, that movie is a good indicator of it. So, they didn't like people driving into work. It's 100,000 people that work there, right?
Mhm,
And Google isn't a building, it's a city. Like, they have, like, 300 buildings all next to each other. And so, when you go into work, you take a bus. So, they have all these buses that go out all over California, like, some of them are 2, 3 hours away, the bus will come pick you up
mm,
to bring you in, and when you're on the bus, there's, Wi-Fi, there's snacks, there's a microwave, you can eat.
mm,
So, you're just sitting there listening to music, chilling, you get into work, and you can really do whatever you wanna do. You can go play volleyball if you want.
mhm,
Most people go eat. There's bars there's a movie theater there, swimming pools there, chiropractors there, doctors are there, dentists is there. And so their thing is like, "Hey, we want you to stay here. We don't actually want you to go home. We don't want you to leave." Some people lived at Google. They had cars or, they'll have, like, these, like, sleeping arrangements and, like, different places, and they lived on campus. There's showers and stuff there.
w so when a culture is that immersive, I'm guessing that has to impact so much of another person's life. I mean, at this time, I don't know if you're still marriage,
No, it did. It definitely
kids, like
impacted my marriage big time.
yeah, so, how are you balancing that, and how did the other people balance something like that?
My thing was a little different because I think being black there and being so high level, I didn't see anyone else like me.
Mm,
And so I ended up trying to find other people who look like me, but it ended up being like, people who ran like HR,
Mm,
people ops and, or janitors or something.
mm,
There was like really no engineers at the time. And so, just for me being there, I wanted to have some kind of identity. I wanted to have something that was like someone else like me. And so, so I ended up not hanging out with other engineers. I ended up hanging out with other group of people who like go drinking usually, like at work,
mm,
hanging out. And so for me to bond, I'm usually like drinking after work most days.
mhm. And I've uplifted this before. Shout out to Colin Mays when we talk about like the culture of different workplaces, environments, communities that have that culture. And definitely, I think for high end, high level, high stress work, long hours, alcohol becomes a big part of it.
Yeah,
I've also uplifted this before. Drugs, alcohol, and violence and sex are just big a part of American culture itself.
yeah,
So, and I put alcohol in that drug space too, because usually, oftentimes in that alcohol space, sex kind of can play in this space as well. So I'm not saying that this is your story per se, but I'm putting it in the context so
yeah,
people
yeah.
can kind of imagine even at a Google, it can even look like, as we've seen, political spaces and places. It can even be in places that you don't even think that that would be what's happening. But the open bars
Hmm.
usually exist for a reason.
There's actually a strip club right across the street from the Google. That was one of the places
Mm,
they would go to drink was the strip club.
mhm,
Um, but it got to the point though where I wasn't really coming home as often as I normally do. Normally, I'm like uh, I'm the dad. I'm always at home. I got 3 kids at the time.
mm,
I'm always at home, spending time with them, doing things with them. But now, and I was working from home too. When I was living in Vegas, I was working from home when I was working for ECYs.
yeah.
But this time I'm actually going to work. I'm staying at work long hours. I'm trying to like make it work there, and they're paying me like a lot, right? So I actually made Google $1 billion in my first job.
So let's talk a little bit about that type of pressure too,
Okay,
and how that mentally, how you start functioning with that in mind when you know that what you are working has this value to the organization that you're bringing.
yeah,
And that organization is rewarding you monetarily, but it also is having other impacts on other decision making. Like, how did you deal with that type of pressure of saying, like, damn, they're paying me way above what I'd expect?
yeah.
And clearly, I'm very essential to this. How do you deal with that type of pressure?
I did not do with it well at all. So the way it works at Google, and a lot of people don't understand this, is that you get a salary, you get bonuses every year, but you also get RSUs. Are you familiar with RSUs?
No.
So RSUs is where it's at. Like
Mhm.
if you ever work for a company, you want to get RSUs. Google's not the only one. So RSUs are stock options. I'll get stocks of Google every single month, right? So just imagine Google is going up and doubling and tripling in price. My salary is going up and tripling in price. So I think when I first got my contract with them, I was like, oh, this isn't much more than I'm making now. It's okay. We live in California. Within like a year, my salary tripled.
Mm.
Just because, not because of my performance, is because Google's performance was doing well.
So this also creates more of an incepted connection and commitment to the victory for everybody.
Yeah,
So you're kind of coming in and it's like, yo, you know, I'm trying to get to this million.
right.
So I'm looking at you on my team like, yo, my G,
Exactly,
I know you said you want to hang out with the kids, but we working overtime today. Are you working overtime?
exactly. But the way they do it though is you don't get it right away. You get it on a schedule, and so it's like they want you to stay there, and you have to unlock it. Like, hey, we're going to give this to you. We're going to give it to you in a year from now, right?
So
So you
it's
have to
even
stick
more
around.
it's more of the carrot on the stick.
Yeah. So I didn't get any RSUs my first year.
Mm.
You're building it, but you're always getting a year later. But once I started getting it, man, it was fast money. But the thing is, it was the money, it was the alcohol, it was the women, it was all of it. I wasn't showing up for work on time at this point. It got to the point where even though I made them $1 billion, my boss was like, "Bryan, I don't want you on my team anymore." I had to find a whole 'nother team to work on at Google.
Mm,
Even when I first started working there, because I was such a I came in at such a high level, like, even the level I came in at Google, was level 5, it was a senior, and most people don't come in that level. Most people start off, like, a lot earlier, but because I was level 5 and I was the only black engineer, they put me in some DEI initiatives. I wasn't really showing up for those either. It was just me and a bunch of women and some white males, for the
mhm.
DEI initiatives, and so I find myself not being able to show up on time, not being able to do the things I need to do, not like, I had such a good to be honest, even looking back, I had such a good opportunity, and I just didn't do well with it because of the money, of trying to hang out, trying to find myself. Also, I had 3 kids and a wife at home trying to figure out it was just too much for me to juggle at one point, and with alcohol comes depression, right?
Yeah, it's a depressant.
Yeah. And I didn't realize these things at the time. I mean, I think I might have been, like, my early 30s that, things are happening to me, but I'm not sure why they're happening to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm going through. It wasn't until later on I'm looking back.
And you were able to reflect on it.
Yeah.
So even as that snapshot that you give, and plus as I talk about that pressure,
Mhm.
because I can only imagine. And I know people often say, like, I wouldn't be pressured. I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's different, especially when you explain that everybody's seeing like this collective victory. So a year from now, I may have this, I'm going to have a lot of money connected to the success of what we're working on right now.
Mhm.
So I want you as committed as I'm committed.
Right.
And that can be very tough.
Yeah. It's definitely tough because it makes you even wanna stay there longer, and staying there longer is not a bad thing. I mean, the
Mhm.
food there is it's like I said, it's 300 buildings, right? Each building has a cafeteria. Some of them have gourmet food. You got waiters coming out. You got wine. They're like wining and dining you to stay there. They're
Mm.
open late, right? They got movie theaters there. You can go get a massage. They have massage rooms in almost every single building. You can go get a massage.
So, so even navigating that space.
Mhm.
So from that and struggling, when do you recognize, okay, this ain't connecting for me?
Um, I was only there for like 2 or 3 years before my marriage was starting to fall apart,
Mm,
and I didn't look at it as Google wasn't to connect me or even the alcohol at the time. It wasn't necessarily what I was doing. I was thinking maybe it's because I'm not near family.
mhm,
You know, I grew up around family. I'm realizing I'm making some mistakes now. I don't have no elders. I don't have no one around me to talk to about it. I'm
mm.
like lost over here in this empire called Google, and I just felt like a little bit homesick. We're not homesick, but I just felt like I needed more support.
Yeah,
And so I talked to my mom about it, and also I'm raising 3 kids by myself. I mean, with my wife at the time, but my kids are not. I grew up, with a big family and everything. So my kids are growing
you
up with no
said
family.
200 deep. Yeah.
Yeah, they're growing with no family,
Mm,
and they're moving. My oldest was born
yeah.
in Virginia, then we go to Vegas, and then we're in
Mhm.
California,
Yep.
and they're and even when I'm in these places, like I was in Virginia, I moved like 3 times. When I was in Vegas, I moved like twice. When I was in California, I moved like 3 times. They're going to different schools. They don't have any roots, school, classmate wise. So I decided to move back to Michigan.
Mm,
Um, at that moment to try to somehow just take part more of my life, right?
yeah.
But then on the way back to Michigan, that's when I couldn't find a job because I want to still work for Google. I love Google.
Yeah.
Google's like that is that spot. And so I was looking for a job in Michigan, but all they had was sales here. They didn't really have engineering teams. And so I found a job in Chicago. So I moved my whole family to Chicago. And then my mother was like, Ryan, you should move your family to Michigan and you should go to Chicago by yourself, be there for a few months, and then go to Michigan. And she gave me some terrible advice. I listened to my mom, and that's when I got issued a divorce because now she's over. Because at first, it was like I'm out all the time in California. Now I'm in Chicago by myself. She's over in Michigan. So now I'm dealing with divorce. I'm still working for Google, and then also just being in Chicago for Google was pretty awesome too. I lived in West Loop. I had a high rise, like a penthouse high rise.
Mhm.
My place had a swimming pool. It was
So
all
all
the
the
minute
trimmings of material success and
yeah,
excess but the family dynamic is not there.
Right, right. Yeah, my kids are coming, like, every other weekend just to
Mm,
see me. They love it. I mean, they don't really know what's going on, you
yeah,
know, but they, just seeing the public transportation and just going to different sites. I mean, I'm spending as much time as I can with my kids, but it's a lot of underlying turbulence going on just in
yeah.
general.
Mhm.
Um,
And then just that distance too.
yeah,
'Cause also we think, Detroit to Chicago, it's about for me, it's a 4.5 hour drive. Now, I know some people that try to make it in 3, but
yeah.
more power to you if you wanna have, challenges, especially boy, Indiana police, mm-mm, mm-mm, not Corey Frazier, but just that reflection, I'm assuming, on that drive back.
Mhm.
Where we're at, how are things, what's functioning, and also,
And I wasn't able to save it because of the 'cause
yeah,
I'll get into town and I'll get to the house, and it's just the kids, like, she's gone.
yeah,
I don't know where she's at, and I don't like to but I gotta go back to Chicago for work,
mhm,
so I wasn't even I couldn't even save it,
yeah,
because we live in 2 different cities, like, it's not like I can show up at her door with some flowers, and
yeah,
I gotta take care I'm paying for the house there, and I'm paying for the house in the place in
mhm,
Chicago. I'm paying for both. So my ex-wife, she never worked the whole time we were
mm,
married, and so then I ended up getting divorced, but I really wanna raise my kids, and so I go to Michigan, get joint custody, and that's when I started my life basically as a single dad. Um, I was working for so then I switched from Google to Waymo
mm,
because I had to get a job in Michigan,
yeah,
right? Waymo's in Michigan. I'm not sure if everyone knows that. The
mm,
self-driving car.
no,
Yeah, so I used to have a car come pick me up from West Bloomfield and drive me all the way to Ann Arbor, with no driver.
hmm,
Now this is just a few years ago. Um, I remember when I was actually applying for Waymo, they wouldn't hire me. They said, You don't have any experience with the self-driving car." But at Google, one of the cool things about Google is you can actually do whatever you want for 20% of your time.
mm,
So I went to Waymo, I said, "Hey, I'll work for you for free, 20% of my time, for 3 months. And after 3 months, if you like me, hire me. If you don't like me, then, hey, you got some free work out of me." And so they agreed. And so then, I ended up working for Waymo. It was a dream. 'Cause I had, me in high school, my 2 dreams were to work at Google and to work in a self-driving car.
hmm,
So this is my second dream. A lot of people can't even get a first dream.
yeah,
And so, my boss is like, "What do you wanna work on?" And I'm asking, like, "What's everyone else working on?" And no one was working on weather. Like, he was starting a brand new weather team. No one was working on it. I was, like, employee number 1, and weather is, like, one of the human beings, like, no one knows how to predict weather. Like, I gotta predict weather for a car, so this is my first time, like, installing, like, weather stations on buildings. I'm, like, trying to 3D print, like, weather sensors for the car. I'm really trying to understand weather. This is, like, a 3-year project. Before, it was, like, just me. At the end of the thing, it was 120 people, but we ended up filing a patent for the world's first fog detector for San Francisco.
hmm,
Can detect fog within, 2 hours with 95% accuracy.
wow,
We also able to, develop so it can detect wind, detect rain, wet roads, and so at the time, Waymo was only in, Phoenix, Arizona. There were no other locations with actual public people or like actual users using it. 'Cause even though we're here in Michigan, it was only for employees,
mhm,
to test it out, and, they had to understand weather in order to expand. So once I got started, no one needed weather. But when I was in the middle of it, we was like, "Hey, we wanna expand to San Francisco. We need weather." So that's when my team really just started building up, beefing up. And so we actually finally delivered cars in San Francisco. I'm not sure if you're following Waymo, but they're, like, everywhere now.
mhm,
They're still using the technology that
wow,
I built to this day.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So in all of this, still while balancing now, I guess the new role of single dad.
Yeah, being a single dad.
What was that balancing act like? And coming back to Michigan too. What was the culture like? You're visiting, but what did you notice upon coming back to Michigan?
It was so different because when I left, I was trying to work for my family company and everyone worked there, right?
Yeah.
But during the, Obama era, they lost a lot of contracts. They lost a contract with the city the water department for Detroit, and so my family's company disbanded, like, it's
Mm,
gone,
mm,
right? And they kinda turned on each other a little bit.
Yeah.
They're pointing a finger at each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely business is my family's deep in business. And business can test a lot of boundaries dealing with relationships, communication, and then having the humility to say, look, I was wrong here.
Right.
And then how to patch that up and move forward. It's a lot of lessons. Oftentimes, Lord knows, it bothers the hell out of my lady when I speak to business being so much like life, but it is because it's relationships.
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about in business,
But it lasted over a decade.
and that's powerful.
Like the heartache, it lasted
Mm,
like some of my uncles, they had to remortgage their houses, try to save the company, but some
yeah.
company ended up being saved, so it ended up hurting a lot of people.
Mm,
So when I got back, that's what I came back to, was
mm,
that pain that everyone was going through, and they weren't doing anything together no more.
mm,
And I wanted to get my kids into school with their cousins, and they still to this day, they've never been to school with their cousins.
mm.
Everyone wasn't as close. They weren't doing these family activities as much
Yeah.
anymore.
Mhm.
It almost made me feel like, why did I even come back a little bit?
Yeah. Mm. So upon coming back, that in reflection,
Yeah.
but also learn lessons too. I'm guessing as you sit and you observe, because also the best lessons, I definitely think, are when we take L's or when we see that L that was taken, hence pulling those lessons from and moving forward. And in that same reflection, I'm sure that that's brought a lot more context because clearly you've done so much on your working with other organizations and
Mhm.
other spaces. And it was always a vision of working for your family's business,
Right,
you and your business.
right.
What's been the vision?
So, you mean my current business?
Yeah.
So, there's one other step in between. I worked at Amazon.
Mm,
Mentioned that. So I left Waymo, and this is a crazy story as well. Like, I had this childhood friend. He's not really my friend. He's my so I have I had like this cousin who's not really my cousin. He's my cousin's cousin, but I would see him all the time.
yeah.
And I'll go visit him in Florida. We play video games together when we were kids. And he had a neighbor, and so these people I hung out and I saw every once in a while. We go skiing and stuff like that. But he actually worked at Amazon. He was like, Brian, come to Amazon, right?
Hmm.
And so I ended up leaving Waymo, going to Amazon, and this is when I started making about 7 figures, right?
Mm,
This is my first 7 figures. So when I was working Waymo, I was only making like 400, like 450, something like that.
mm. You say that as if hey, making 450 is amazing. I mean, the average, as you know, we talk about it, this Detroit is different. I mean, the average area median income in the area is about 35K a year, 36K a year. And then when you look at that zero into Detroit, hence a lot of that predatory lending, you're looking at maybe like about 24,000 a year. So, I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about that, I mean, man, that's like, to make about 450, that's like somebody's salary for 18 years,
Right.
man. You
Right.
know?
But then, I mean, to make 7 figures though, and with RSUs, you know how
Un
RSUs go up. I'm thinking like, man, I'll be,
unfathomable.
yeah.
Mhm.
That was me starting out. But the guy who, was supposed to be my friend, I'm asking him how to negotiate, and he didn't realize I was going to negotiate like that.
Yeah.
He became really jealous because he said I was making more than him.
Mm.
So then he was like, you owe me a Rolex."
Hilarious.
So he started sending me photos of Rolexes, some of them between 50,000 to 100,000.
Mhm.
I'm like, "Why would I buy you a Rolex? Like, that's not cool." And so, I really stood my ground, like, "I'm not buying you no Rolex." Like, he also got 10 grand as
Mhm.
a referral fee.
Yeah.
But then after that, he started talking bad about me to my boss, like, it was like the first month I'm there, I'm meeting my boss for the first time in person. He's there, and he had a whole, like, meltdown talking bad about me in front of my boss.
Mm.
I had to put him aside. I had to, like, call my other cousins, like, "Hey, like, your boy is tripping."
Yeah.
And, I don't know what it was, but he talked bad about me the whole time I worked there. And, I actually went and I talked to my boss's boss about a brand new idea. I sold the whole department. So, I'm the highest ranking engineer at Waymo. I'm sorry, not Waymo, Amazon at the time for my department. Like, everyone reports to me, right? Not management wise, but lead wise. There's no one higher than me
Yeah.
besides the senior vice president, right?
Mhm.
The senior vice president is Matt Owens. He's now the CEO of AWS.
Mm.
right? So that's how high I was at AD West, and so uh, I had this really good idea about where we should head as a department. Like this is where we need to head to. I sold the directors on it, but then they thought it was a good idea to put me and this guy together in the same team.
Mm.
And he undermined me the whole time to the
Yeah.
point where he was trying to take my idea to the point where he's leading my idea. A year later, HR approaches me and say, "Hey, this guy's been talking bad about you for a whole year now. We're gonna have to do something about this. You have anything to say about him?" And I talked to my pastor about it. I'm like, he's been there for 10 years. He's already sowed so many bad seeds where like I'm starting to see people like treat me a different way because of what he's been saying.
Yeah.
I know that God has my back. I don't mind walking away from this and figuring something else out.
Well, I mean, you've definitely fell in a lot of favor just in a lot of these stories, really just starting from that passion of that childhood to this point.
Yeah.
So I would say that that is one heck of a move, but it also shows the humility of understanding situations. Hence, there are no losses, there are L's. And when what I often speak up, I know I'm giving a lot right here, but this is a great space for me to give this. Like when people say, I'm not a hater, or I'm not racist, I'm not sexist, I don't have the bigotry, I'm not homophobic. It's layers to all of these things.
Mhm.
You really don't know how you're going to respond until it really starts triggering something inside of you.
Yeah.
And usually what gets under our skin most is someone reflecting some of our either the worst that we see in ourselves or the best that we feel like we could be if we were to apply ourselves. So from what you provided, I would imagine that he now saw how you stepped into this opportunity
Mhm.
and set the table in a space where he's like, "Damn, I never was able to be given that." Here's a classic sports analogy. I don't even know what quarterback is up for renegotiation right now, but whoever that quarterback is in the NFL is going to receive the most money a quarterback's ever received. And then the next one will receive that, and so forth and so on, because that's how it goes in opportunities. So if you have more of a collective, cohesive, but time passing attitude about this, I believe it can be more fruitful. And that's my approach towards a lot of things. Shout out Stephanie Hammonds, my entertainment attorney for all these years. It's like people taking my ideas and stuff like that. I'm like, look, I got thousands of them. You can take it. Because that creativity, if you feel that way and you want to be extractive, destructive, exploitive about some of what I'm working on,
Exactly.
take that and run with it. Because I got more fruit coming from my creativity and my community and the things that I'm working on. In that battle, sometimes you do want to stand your ground in battle, but that takes just as much from me to put energy into something that I could be shifting towards something that is constructive.
That's exactly how I felt. Exactly how I felt. And so I ended up walking away from it. They gave me like a severance, like 1 month,
Mm.
1 month's pay. But this is my first time ever being unemployed.
Wow. And I would not necessarily define you as unemployed, my brother. I don't think that you I wouldn't even imagine you walking into if you went into the unemployment office,
I
they'd be like,
did.
"Oh man, get out of
I
here."
did go to an unemployment office with my nice car, my my
They
i7.
was like, "Oh man, if you don't get out of here," you were in Michigan Works, they'd be like, "Oh man, you pulling up in that." It's like, "You want to do lead remediation, Mr. Campbell?"
I mean, they gave me like $360 every 2 weeks, something like that. It all went to child support. I didn't get none of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is at least this is how God works for me. Like, even though I was being successful, I was still making a lot of bad decisions in other hard parts of my life because I was being so successful. I had more wiggle room for error,
Mhm.
right? So like saving and all the money I made, I wasn't saving that like crazy. I wasn't like
Mhm.
building things and being out. I'm out traveling the world with my girlfriend. Going
Mhm.
we're going two vacations a month
Mm.
sometimes,
Mm.
right? And so once this happened, I had to kind of take a step back. It was a surprise, and I had to figure my life out. And so what ended up happening though is this was also the worst time for me to lose my job
Mm.
because at this time, this is where AI first came out.
Mm.
And this is also when these companies started to have these return to office policies where you can't work in Michigan no more,
Yeah.
right? And so I actually hired a team of people to like look for a job for me.
Yeah.
I paid them to apply me for 100 jobs a week,
Yeah.
and I went on 40 interviews. I
Wow.
had 0 offers.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm guessing at that point you maybe run into that same you're overqualified.
overqualified, and there's so many layoffs because of AI. There's like 10,000 people are being laid off every single month. When I'm applying for these jobs, there's other people applying for these jobs as well.
Yeah.
And these jobs, they take a lot out of you because it's not a normal interview. It's like 7 interviews
Yeah.
for one job. You got to go. You got code in front of them. You got to do design doc. You got to do the systems. It's a lot of work. And then I'll get all the way to the 7th, and they're so happy. Like people are like, friending me on LinkedIn, like, "Oh, you were the best interviewer," and then I wouldn't get it for some reason.
Okay, can you talk about that process? Because it's other people that go through just the multiple interview process.
Yeah.
How do you keep your head in the game and you keep your focus creatively and being constructive,
Mhm.
going through all these steps over and over again? Because yeah, you said 40 different interviews. That's a lot. How do you not end up like Morgan Freeman at the end of Shawshank Redemption for his last parole here and like, hey, you gonna hire me or not hire me? I don't care. You know what I'm saying? How do you keep your head in the game for something like that?
I mean, to be honest, I did it. At the number 40, my heart was like, "This too many no's." I'm not sure if you see, like, I went on 40 interviews, but also the ones I didn't go on interview also said no.
Mm,
I have a whole email boxes of no's,
wow.
and I'm always usually accepted. People can't wait to hire me.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I didn't feel that way at first. At first, I had my head in the game. At first, I used to do a lot of interviews too. And there's a secret to like how you do interviews. There's a secret to how you be successful. A lot of times, it's not about problem solving. It's about how you go about problem solving. Like, I'll give you an interview question. You'll say, "Hey, I have a box full of matches, right? 2,000 matches in a box. How many squares can you make? Out of 2,000. Sometimes you can have squares that share sides.
Yeah.
You can have a square inside of a square.
Yep.
You got 30 minutes, figure it out. Depending on how many, if I give you a number of matches, you got to tell me how many squares 30 minutes. And so I would take that and I'm like, okay, well, can I solve it for 10 matches? Can I solve it for 20 matches? Can I solve it for 50? And then I look at the pattern behind it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm also asking questions. And so, I'm asking their opinion, what they think. And so it's like this game you kind of play where people kind of see how you think. And I got really good at it. And so I always get to the end of the interview. I always get to the 7th one, but there'll always be me versus, 4 other people or 5 other people. I'm assuming it's because I was so high level or something like that. I even applied for like lower level jobs. I didn't get those either.
Yeah, I would definitely think, even as I think of all of your talents, and of so much of, I'm always big in creativity. I would think that I would need to have a vision
Yeah.
that's large enough to bring in some of what you've offered and what you've executed before. It's back to a sports analogy. You think you want that franchise quarterback, you think you're ready for that for your team, but it changes everything because if Patrick Mahomes plays for your losing football team, now you need the training staff for Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
You need so the vulnerability that I look to challenge myself in any leadership position, because this is the other side of it. I have to be vulnerable enough to say, look, Bryan, you're amazing. I don't necessarily think we would have the tools you would need to be successful.
Right.
So how would you work with less? Because those interview questions are, to me, it's like, they're kind of goofy. Like
They're
even in
super
my
goofy.
process, it's like, let's really get you out here.
Right.
This is our goal and this is our vision. I think to really work with you effectively, we need a grand vision. Before we can move to a grand vision, let's start on a small vision, see how we work together first, because that's what I care most about. And then from there, let's do something grand.
Yeah.
That's how I am looking to approach working with so many people as I'm learning, and it is still a learning process, you know what I'm saying, all the time.
Yeah.
And but that's kind of where it would be. So just from what's reflective as I think about it, yeah, it would be intimidating. I'm seeing Amazon, I'm seeing Google, I'm seing
Waymo.
way more. I'm seeing, and then I'm seeing even the trajectory of what you did when you sit down, and then I see your coding. I'm thinking, do we even have the type of team that can run with him? Do I have the player that can run with LeBron James? Do I
Right.
have the staff that's ready for this? No. We have a non-LeBron team. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right, right.
I don't want to throw nobody under the bus. You know what I'm saying? But so that's how I would look at that same scope too.
And you're absolutely right. Like that actually did come up in a lot of different interviews, and I had to sell them on how I would work with a smaller team and how I would grow the team. And they just weren't sold. I think it was because they felt like maybe might be unhappy there.
Well, it's the unhappiness, and then it's the other part of that same reflection, kind of what you ran into at Amazon. I got a star already,
Yeah.
So when that star comes in, are they going to be willing to say to themselves, let's share the basketball or not?
Yeah.
How will that feel? How will this impact the culture? Because the first thing they're going to do, as the LinkedIn is they're going to look at your LinkedIn. And I'm guessing also, this is also where Kari Frazier's lens, race plays a big role in a lot of this. You know what I'm saying? So when they go to your LinkedIn and they see
Mhm.
your history and they check your trends, and the first thing is I'm thinking questioning what's real. Did this really happen? And then after questioning, it's like, how did it happen? It's
Right.
it's like it's like all these folks, and it's like aliens must have invented the pyramids because it's just too far fetched to see that black people did this.
Right.
You know,
No, I think there's a lot of that. But to be honest, I don't really think it's necessarily a people thing, a culture thing.
mm,
I feel like it's a God thing. I feel like
mm,
God. This is how I actually look at my life a little bit. What happened to me? I feel like I was in Egypt, and like and Egypt has you get food in Egypt. We have a shelter in Egypt. I'm looking at corporate life almost like Egypt, where I was being well taken care of, but I'm building someone else's empire, right? And I think it's at some point, sometimes God just takes you out of places, even though you might not be ready. And he's like, yeah, cross the Red Sea. And then you look back at Egypt, you can't go back. I feel like I couldn't go back to corporate life at all, even if I tried to.
wow, that's deep.
And I didn't have shelter. I
Mm,
didn't have food. I didn't have any of that stuff. And so after a while, I have this 401k, I got all this money, but it's like, I mean, when you're making good money, you got a lot of bills too. And so
mhm,
I'm looking at all this money I'm spending out of my savings and my 401k.
yeah,
And it gets to the point now where I get to the point where I have to depend on God just for my next month,
mm,
and they talk about in the Bible how manna kind of rain from the sky and it'll feed you for a day. And then the next day, the manna was like deteriorated. You had to trust in God every single day. And that's how it was for me. Every single month, I had no idea how I was going to take care of things. I had no idea how things were going to go. And I had to really just pray and trust in God the whole step. And I knew that's where I was. Because I knew that's where I was, to be honest, I wasn't afraid of it. I knew it was going to lead to something greater. I knew it was going to lead to something that God had to like snatch me out of in order to show me something different.
yeah,
And so, you guys where you would kind of lean on your friends a little bit. So, this is me talking to Jonathan Barlow a lot about what's going on in
mhm,
my life. This is me also talking to Mac Hendricks
mhm,
and trying to understand like where my next move might be.
yeah,
So that's when I founded Expect Tech in like June, July.
mm,
You know, this also is using AI. I went to AI like, hey, this is what I normally do.
yeah,
I would create a business. What kind of
what,
business would
yeah,
it be? And it created a whole business plan for me and everything. And
mhm.
Jonathan actually helped me with my first website. He built, even though I build websites all the time.
Yeah,
Jonathan built
that's
my
what I was gonna
website.
say. Ain't that something?
Yep. He was like, I just need to see you like out there like thriving.
Yeah,
And there's cycles, where things aren't going right, but you still have hope things are going right. And that's when you really have your closest friends to like push you through it and talk you through it. I got my first contract in November of 2024.
yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. And before that, I had no income since April,
Mm,
you know. And so it was a taste. And then I got another contract in December,
yeah,
and I got another one in January. And before you know it, business is taking off. I'm already making, I think, six figures revenue,
mm,
within like 3 months. You know,
yeah.
You know, I just looked just recently, the last 30 days, I made $40,000, you know?
Yeah, that's big.
And so, I mean, it's not much as compared to what I used to make, but
No,
still,
no, no,
it's a
no, no,
start,
no,
it's a
no, no, no,
beginning,
no, no.
and I love it.
As I often tell people, entrepreneurship, because it's like it's so funny as you talk about your journey. Our
Yeah.
paths are so opposite because I've been such an entrepreneur since,
Mm,
like how people have like side hustles. I had side jobs. Every job I ever worked, I always knew I was going to jump back into my own thing.
yeah,
And your own thing is so different.
yeah,
So you just grow different respect, even like within your family structure and building that team and culture. It's like all these other dynamics, because you're putting that hat on where you're going out there and selling because you're always be closing Glenn
mhm,
Gary, Glenn Ross, but you also have to have a sufficient product. The product itself sells.
yeah,
Along with the product itself selling, you have to have a love for it and that passion and still balance all these other things that go on. And it's so tough because early on, you know, and this is that craziness as you talk about the 40 interviews. I would go on, 100 different meetings with nobody, selling wood, meaning nobody would buy. So I got to a point pre-chat GPT where I would write so many proposals and I'd say, one day somebody's gonna buy this. Cause I had to trick my mind, and this is the insanity in business, that they said they didn't say yes to this proposal, but somebody's gonna say yes one day.
yeah,
So I just have archives of proposals from 2011, 2012, 2013. And now it starts coming in play as the structure of what I'm doing with Detroit is different, especially from that lens of social entrepreneurship opens up. So I would say getting started, even that one customer,
mhm,
and then you really get that one-on-one feel.
yeah,
You have a commitment to what that success is. And I'm not saying that, by the time you get to 1,000, you don't care anymore, but it's a different process to walk that step every step of the way,
yeah,
and that appreciation that you grow for what this looks like, what that user experience is, and how it hits the person and how they function with it. You learn so much more. It's like really those early years in entrepreneurship are it's everything's like a case study, and everything is an opportunity where you learn so much more how you can be more effective because the people that are in the game are not gonna care the way you care about who that customer is and what's being delivered.
right, right. No, you're absolutely right, and so I mean, even though I'm good at so I for me, I'm the product, right?
Mhm.
I have the experience. A lot of times when people are hiring my company, they're hiring me, and so
Yeah.
because of that, I never really dealt with a lot of customers before.
Yeah.
I've always as an engineer,
Yep.
right? And so just dealing with different personalities, like once again, I have friends and stuff that have been doing it for a while. I'm like watching them, so I'm learning. I'm still learning to this day.
Yeah.
But
We all are.
I ended up getting my first two employees in February,
Okay, shout out to them.
and I got two more employees in beginning April. I hired two
Okay.
more employees this week.
Okay.
Yep. So things are taking off, but then also I'm actually really helping out my clients. Like they before me, they were fumbling, they were having issues.
Mhm.
Now they're much more successful.
Yeah.
Now they're it's like such a win-win situation where even though my business is growing, I'm watching their businesses growing as
And like
well.
I say, that's the intimacy of it.
Yeah.
So what are you usually offering to most of the clients?
So I do a lot of software development and I do fractional CTO work.
Mhm. Break that down. What is that?
So a CTO is Chief Technology Officer, right?
Mhm.
Usually have a CEO, you can have a chief of staff, chief marketing officer. So with technology is you pretty much handle anything technology related. So that ends up being like UX, which is like user experience, quality assurance for like testing. You have engineers.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm handling the entire technical staff that's being brought into it. But now also, as my company's growing, I'm bringing my own staff. So if a client hires me, they're not just hiring me; they're hiring my staff as well, which I'm training along the way. And I'm also growing.
Mhm.
And so, typically, most of my customers are founders, and they're trying to get funded. They're trying to grow. They're trying to have a product. You know, a lot of times that they've been dealing with, you know, software engineers that are not like me. You know, people fresh out of college
Yeah.
or a few years experience. I haven't told you everything I've done at Google, but I've built hundreds of products at Google,
Yeah.
right? And I have a different level of experience that really no one else has. Um, when I reached the level I was at Amazon, they said there was only 1,000 of us in the whole world
Mm.
at that level.
Yeah.
And I told you my team was 2,000 people. And so right now, everything's kind of small potatoes a little bit, but I bring the experience to really like launch their career. Right. And so a lot of times they'll hire me and to be honest, it kind of reminds me like dating a girl who's been through a lot of like messed up boyfriends.
Mhm.
They have, even though I know I'm bringing like the sauce, they have a lot of doubts.
Yeah, they sure do, my friend. Because
Yeah.
also, like, when you're dealing with mid-level, smaller businesses, so businesses that would be making somewhere, I'm guessing, under $3 million a year, every dollar is really counting, especially right now in today's economy. And we've all been, as I often say, you know what I'm saying? I'm not in business to keep you in business. I'm in business to keep me in business. So I have to
Yeah.
also know what product and service to add that can expand my profit margins. And that's usually not a space that a lot of people that work in consulting and offering services really lean into. They usually lead into more of the tertiary businesses, or like businesses that like are businesses that help with workflow and efficiency of internal operations, nothing external. Being that you have so much external strength, it almost seems too good to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. They actually, um, they kind of revert back to what happened. And so I'm constantly having to like reassure them, like, hey, I'm going to deliver. Hey,
Mhm.
it's going to look great. This is going to be able to reach millions of people. Like a lot of times I have a website goes down or whatever. Like, no, the things I'm building are going to like, you can launch worldwide.
Mm.
No, I'm building it so it's reliable. I'm building it so that you're going to be able to, this is the last time you're going to have to do this. I'm laying the whole foundation so you can actually grow from here. A
Yeah.
lot of these founders, they'll build it and it's not being done right. They'll hire a whole nother team, build it again. And you'll see them with multiple versions, but and they're like really poor quality, really poorly made. But I'm actually building something that you would build at Google, something you would build at Facebook, and something they haven't really seen before.
Mm.
And so, and they also haven't worked with someone like me before. So to be honest, the technology is not the hard part. It's the it's the trust with the customer or the
That
client.
is,
That's
I
that's the
did not
hardest part.
always say it's all about people.
Yeah.
It's the people.
Yep.
So with that, man, it's great to hear that, and I love to. How do people connect? Give them the website.
Oh, so my company's called X Big Tech, and the reason why it's called X Big Tech is because I'm from Big Tech. No longer there, bringing it to everyone else. So xbigtech.com is where you can link watch me, or you can go to my LinkedIn at Bryan Campbell.
All right. So classic Detroit is different questions now as we get to this close.
Okay.
And I think you already uplifted it, but very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
It was a 1994 Camaro Z28 Blue with T
Mm.
tops.
Okay. What year you get it?
I bought it 1999.
Where you go when you first got it?
High school.
Okay. Went to school. All right. All right. Classic answer.
Yeah.
You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs.
Okay.
What songs you playing?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Definitely, I'll probably find some classics like some Marvin Gaye or some Michael Jackson or something like that. Just because I feel like the crowd is going to be probably mixed.
Okay. I mean, you the DJ. You the
Yeah,
DJ.
those are
What?
probably my first 2 songs just to get it started. Some classics.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't have them on top of my head. To
But
me,
you
I gotta
just
listen to the
know.
songs and
Okay. And then you make the selection.
yeah, yeah.
All right. And last one.
Okay.
You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Ooh. Um, I mean, to be honest, I would like to. I was the first thing that came to my mind was probably Emma Beard, my grandmother.
Wow.
That's the
Okay.
first thing that came because she really let a legacy here. I mean, there's actually like newspaper articles of my family.
Hmm.
That was the first thing that came to mind. But
Let's roll with it then.
okay,
Let's roll with it. Emma Beard, I like it. Family legacy. I'm all for it. And this talked so much about family. Thank you so much, Mr. Campbell, and I
Yeah, no
look
problem.
forward to checking out more and more of your works creatively, and also seeing where maybe it collaborates with Detroit is different.
Okay. Me too. I look forward to it. Thanks you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Peace.